As I shared last week, this series is called Belonging, and we want to talk about how we belong in the church and how we belong in the family of God. And last week we talked about we actually all belong in the family of God, and actually you individually belong. And you know, sometimes we have been made to feel like we don't belong, and it's a pretty hard place. And so last week we talked about that. And tonight we're going to be talking about how our role in making other people feel like they belong in the family of God. So, as I said last week, we want to hear some other stories, and we're always looking for people's stories, and I will be tapping people on the shoulder from every now and again and say, hey, I think you got something really cool to share. Yeah, so tonight, I did that with Kate, and so Kate's going to come up here to talk about this sort of stuff. So we are recording it, so it is part of the whole audio and the sermon and online sort of thing, because it is an important part of it. We wanted to do that. So thank you, Kate, for being brave in doing this, because we're talking about where we belong and where we don't belong, and sometimes we don't like to admit that we don't belong anywhere or have we felt bad feelings. So, but firstly, I've got my questions on here, so if I refer to this just like you're, it's okay. First one's an easy one. So how long have you been part of North England Uniting Church for?
My family and I moved here at the beginning of 1996, so 20 years this year.
Ooh, how old are you?
21.
Hey, so that first year you can remember lots, can't you?
Yep, I remember it vividly. It was good times.
Being here for 20 odd years, what are some things you love about North England Uniting Church?
Well, we do many things really well, but I think one of the things that I really like that sort of covers several bases is that we are what would be described as alive. That is, we're self-aware, and we haven't always, but lately we've been getting quite good at looking critically at ourselves and how we can improve, and vision for the future is something that we've got going on very well at this church, and lots of people have lots of great ideas of how the church can grow and become bigger and better and serve God in loads of awesome ways. So yes, our vision and our aliveness is what I like about this church.
I make up words all the time. I'm not
There's
too
going
sure.
to be a few of those. I get the feeling there's going to be a few of those.
That's great. As I said, we're talking about times where we belong in life and in like the family of the church and the life of this church. So when was the time where you felt like you did belong, or what were some of the experiences of when you did belong?
It's happened a few times. I can't remember the specifics of each, but basically what has happened is that I've been unavailable to come to some sort of youth function or event, state youth games or some sort of games night or something of that nature, and I'd ask my friends how it went, and rather than saying it was fun but you missed out and we had a good time and you missed out on some good fun, they would say, yeah, it was fun, but it wasn't the same without you, or we had fun, but it would have been more fun with you, because, I mean, it's so simple, but it made me feel valued because, I felt valued enough that they noticed my absence and I was missed, and it's touching when people say that, rather than, it was great, you should have been there. It was like, well, it was fun, but it would have been better if you were there.
Getting to the sort of harder feelings, what about times when you felt you didn't belong? Because I'm sure there've been times, as we all have, in this church and in other places where we didn't feel we belonged. But what about somewhere in particular here?
I think the thing that has been quite common with the times that I haven't been feeling like I belong so much is that people don't know me very well, and I mean, they'll ask about my week and any news and upcoming stuff, but in terms of the nuances of who I am and what makes me tick, people tend not to bother. And that's not a bad thing. And if everyone started asking about my deep, dark secrets, I'd be really put off. But I guess the problem is when they don't know me, but then they fill in the gaps with assumptions. And where I felt really judged is where there's been a trait in my character or a quirk or something that people don't like, But instead of asking why I might be like that, they just quietly judge me without caring to hear the whole story. And I know they talk. I can hear that they talk about it, but never to me, to each other, and I find out about it. I don't know why people think I'm stupid, but I do hear about it, and it's unpleasant. And some people would say, well, yeah, I mean, but I don't want to pry. And like, there's sensitive ways of going about that. Like something like, for example, hey, you don't have to share, so just tell me to mind my own business, but I'm curious, what's with you? And that gives the person the power to say no, thanks, but no. But also what they do share with you might still give you some sort of perspective. But people didn't do that for me, and what has been worse is that there have been false assumptions made, and rather than double checking, people went and passed on the misinformation to people who didn't know any better. So, and I've heard that people have said, oh, well, I didn't want to ask because I knew that you would blow up like this because it's you. How poorly do people regard me? How low do people think I am that they honestly believe that in the face of genuine inquiry, I would rip them to shreds? Obviously, I am going to have difficulty maintaining decorum if I found out that people have been trash talking me behind my back about something which would easily have been cleared up if they had just asked me. So, I mean, this sort of stuff is pretty much the picture-perfect example of why we have to have sermons on gossip and on conflict resolution and on gracious confrontation. Because people pull stunts like that and people get hurt.
So over the 20 years, I see it's like a wave sometimes. Like sometimes you see it stronger, and sometimes it doesn't see so much, and other times you see it stronger and that stuff there. And I'm guessing that's a sense. I mean, it's always been there, but I mean, sometimes it's really strong and sometimes it's not as strong. And I think that is so. And I think that as I said, you've been here for 20 years, so longer than I have. So as a part of the furniture and that sort of stuff.
I was here before you.
But it is like that, and what you're talking about is stuff that happens outside the church very much, and a lot. And I deal with it at schools, and I deal with it in teachers in certain respects as well. The fact that we have over the last, I mean, I've been here for 11 years or 12 years, sort of stuff. We have over periodically covered those topics, and so every now and again we think, oh, we cover the topics, we talk about it, and that's it, and then 6 months or 12 months later, it'll rear its ugly head again, and we go from that. So it goes through waves. For some of us, it sticks with us all the time. Like we never really outgrow that sort of thing. And so we don't really see it. And like we're going to be sharing tonight, sort of stuff there, how each person will look at it differently. So it doesn't matter how I feel, I fit in. We've got to be looking at other people and how they feel, that sort of thing. What are some of the things that you think we could do better or that we could do differently to help it?
I think the things that we can do to make people feel like they belong is pretty common sense sort of stuff. But I was thinking about your questions earlier in the week because I got to prepare. And something that came to mind was that I realised we don't really teach people what they can do to feel like they belong. And I guess the way I would describe that would be that when I was a teenager, when I was in my youth, and I say when, like it was only a few years ago, so I'm not old and wise or anything like that, but there were a bunch of misconceptions that I had about adulthood that no one told me weren't true, and they changed my view of everything, and it actually, and I feel like I want to share that with you youth, you younger teenagers, like the rest of you can listen, but because I found this stuff really useful, and I wish someone had told me these things when I was 14. So, the first, you know that feeling where you're going about in life and you have no idea what you were doing? You know that feeling? Yeah, that never goes away. Sorry to tell you. But
Even our age, even my age, sort of, not our age, we're not the same thing, no.
I know people
and the messages that they're prevalent for young people, but they're messages that we need to hear all the time as well. The fact that we need to question this stuff, we need to realise that, hey, life goes on. I
know people who are in their 60s, and I express my admiration of their wisdom and then say, what? Me, I'm not wise. I still don't know what I'm doing. So, I guess the good news is that gives us all some common ground. And I guess leading on from that, so you know how with adults we use fancy long Bible speak like atonement and sanctification and anti-disestablishmentarianism, which is not in the Bible, but you know. The Bible is, from God, an instruction manual on life. And we recycle and regurgitate bits and pieces of it, not because we are theologians or scholars or anything like that, but because we, point 1, have no idea what we are doing and need the instruction manual of life, the Bible, to teach us what to do. And when we need encouragement, we give each other bits and pieces of what we've read. So don't feel like we are above you because we are knowledgeable in biblical things. We, again, no idea what we are doing, and we are looking to the Bible to assist us. The third one is, it's something that goes unsaid, but it needs to be addressed because it causes a lot of problems, and that is that this unwritten rule that we cannot show or express our pain. We have to roll with the punches of life without flinching at all in the name of being strong. I have no idea where this has come from, but you need to know it is false. It is completely and utterly false. Nobody said you had to be void of emotion. And in fact, all the psychology and facts and statistics and studies about human emotions say that if you run from your pain, if you do not sit in it and cry and get it out of your system, you will hurt yourself. Not if, not but, when. You are a ticking time bomb if you do not let yourself experience the emotions that you are feeling and let them out. And when I was 14 or 15, I used to think that I was cool and edgy because I didn't let anyone see me cry. And it's a long, elaborate story that I'll save for another time, but the abridged version is this. The biggest mistake I have ever made to date is that I refused to share my pain. And my friends and family begged me to share with them, but I just wouldn't have a bar of it. Some say it was pride, some say it was a lack of self-esteem. I don't know how it works because they're polar opposites, but the truth is it was probably both running in parallel. And it ruined my life. I did a whole lot of damage to myself and my family and to my friends. And so I guess I would just urge you to just get rid of this notion that we are not allowed to have feelings, because we are human and it is how we are wired and it is healthy. Chris, after many of your sermons, you'll say to people, if any of you have anything you need to get off your chest, talk to one of the leaders, adults, you know the rest. He does that a lot. Not because he has to, as our youth pastor, not because it's cute, but for your sake, for the sake of your health and sanity, you need to find people who you can be emotionally vulnerable with. And when you do, you give them license to do the same for you, and then you develop this cool little thing called friendship. And, when you have friends who you can trust with your pain and they can trust you with theirs, you begin to feel safe, like you belong. Now, I've ranted off into the sunset, and Chris probably thinks I'm never coming back, so I'm just going to summarise real quick. Number 1, stop feeling inadequate. Nobody is prepared. We're all flailing around trying to look professional while doing so, whether we are 13 or 30 or 300. Number 2, stop feeling inadequate. We are all lost. The Bible is our map, and we recycle the lingo because we need it, not because we are scholars. We have no idea what we are doing. Number 3, stop feeling inadequate. You are allowed to share and experience your emotions. You need to wallow in them and weep heartily to someone who you trust. And I don't mean a cute single tear running down your cheek like in music videos. I mean like leaking out of every hole in your face. Your face doesn't even look like a face anymore because it's swollen and scrunched up and ugly. Let it out. It's good. It is healthy, and it is better than carrying it yourself in the name of being tough. That's How to Belong. I have majorly hijacked your sermon time.
No,
Sorry.
it's
Thank
fine
you.
because it links two things. It links two things. I mean, it talks about how we belong. You touched on some very important things that how we belong and what it takes. We need to be that vulnerable person. We need to be that vulnerability sort of thing to say, okay, hey, this is me. This is a real me. This is where I fit. This is what I want to do. Just want to get out of there. And then you touched on how it felt when you didn't belong. And it leads into what we can do and what we can do to help each other belong and goes from there. So you didn't hijack it, it's all right. I don't have to speak now. No, it's right there. So thank you for sharing. As I said, it takes a lot of courage to do that sort of thing, and a lot of things are raw to all of us. And so thank you for that. And I'm gonna start speaking, but we're gonna open in time in prayer. So I'll get the chairs out of the way. And thanks, Kate. Give her a round of applause now. Let us just pray while we do this out. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for tonight. Thank you that we can come here and share and explore your word and explore you there, Lord. Lord, we just want to continue to talk to us. Thank you for the messages that we have heard through the worship, through the fellowship, through what Kate has to speak, and hopefully open our hearts up to what we're going to talk about more tonight. We just pray these things in your name. Amen. I want to start off by asking, how many of you guys like puzzles out there? Like a jigsaw puzzle? No, like a jigsaw. Some do and some don't. I don't mind them. I get frustrated by them very easily. Sometimes they're easy to do. And I've got a video to show. This is a bit like me. It's from a show called New Girl. I like the show. It's a bit dorky and geeky sometimes, but it's good. But I'm going to show, this is what I'll be like in puzzles as well. So show it here.
Winston, what can I do for you?
Don't talk to me that much. Never lie to me, and never, ever touch my puzzle.
Winston, do we think now is really the right time to be starting a puzzle?
Yeah, I'm great at puzzles.
You're a born puzzler, Winston. Sure. But don't you agree that sometimes when you start puzzles, you get a little bit weird and, I don't know, intense? Spend a lot of time humming.
Hey, Schmidt, what do you think it's going to look like?
What do I think it's going to look like?
Yeah, the puzzle.
Winston, it's on the box. The picture's on the box. It's a Japanese garden.
Schmidt, calm down. What is your problem?
Winston, you've been working on this puzzle for quite some time now. You realize a lot of those puzzle pieces are upside down, right? It's just they're cardboard color. Is that an almond that you have inserted into one of the pieces? Are you just eating them or are you using them as pieces? You know that's an almond, right?
Ah! Schmidt, come here!
You're terrible at puzzles. Worst I've ever seen by a mile. What do you have, fly vision? Look at this puzzle. It's ages 6 and up. You're up, Winston. You are way up.
You want to say that to my face?
This is a corner piece, Winston. How do you not see that? What are you, blind? I'm so sorry. Actually, a blind man could feel the smooth edges of a corner piece.
You're making me so mad. Sir, puzzling. I am puzzling. Looks good to me.
So that's what I'd be like in puzzles. As I said, I sometimes like them. My family has been known to do puzzles from time to time, and it takes a lot of patience to do them. Like when you first start and you get the box and you see the picture on the outside, and you tip all the pieces out and you think, oh, how on earth is that supposed to look like that sort of thing? So, and that's where I get my frustration, because I start a little bit and then it goes all over the shop. My little brother used to love puzzles, and the thing was that he'd be so much quicker at them than I am. And as an older brother, you don't want to have your younger brother better than you than anything. And so I would have to hide puzzle pieces from him. So we'd get frustrated and couldn't get... So there'd be 1 or 2 puzzle pieces missing, and he'd get frustrated because they couldn't complete the puzzle. And then you have those larger 1,000-piece puzzles. And like we used to do them as family. And then and like aunties and uncles used to do that sort of thing as well. And so we used to have these moments where, like, I couldn't steal a puzzle piece from my 95-year-old grandmother. That'd be just mean. I couldn't do that. But I'd go there and I'd look in there for ages and find one piece, and I'd have to walk away because, and then come back half an hour, and then family members would stay there for ages doing it. And so, but the jigsaws are fascinating things. You see the picture on the box, as I said at the start, and you tip the things out and think, how on earth is this supposed to represent this? the original picture. But you slowly put it together and you slowly get excited by doing it. And then you get to the point, sometimes you get to a point of frustration because there's just you've done all the edges pieces, you've done all the easy ones and all the middle ones are hard. And you get to that point and you think, how am I going to do this? It's just not going to fit in there. You turn it upside down, you get an almond, put it in the middle. No, you don't really. But you find out how you're going to do this. Then, as I said, you put another couple of pieces in and it's okay. Then you get to finally finish it. And you think, how good is it when you've completed that whole picture? It looks like what it's supposed to look like on the box. Now, I sometimes do puzzles with Beth, my 7-year-old daughter, not the 1,000-piece ones, more the 20-piece ones, and they're Dora or Paw Patrol or something like that. And she has to put the last piece in because she wants to see the completed puzzle and wants to put that effort into it. And so once she does, she sits back and thinks, how good is it? How nice is it to see the piece of the puzzle working nicely together? And I want to take that analogy and say, have you ever thought the church or our group is like a jigsaw puzzle? I want to read a Bible verse and to explain it a little bit more and see how it links. And so 1 Corinthians 12 verses 14 to 27. Yes, the body has different parts, not just one part. If the foot says, I am not a part of the body because I am not a hand, and does not make it any less part of the body. And if the ear says, I'm not part of the body because I'm not an ear and not an eye, would that make it any less part of the body? Suppose the whole body were an eye, then how would you hear? If the whole body were just one big ear, how could you smell anything? But God made our bodies with different parts, and He has put each part just where He wants it. What a strange thing a body would be if it only had one part. Yes, there are many parts, but only one body. The eye can never say to the hand, I don't need you. The head can never say to the feet, I don't need you. Now all of you together are Christ's body, and one of you is separate, and each one of you is separate, and a necessary part of it. See, each one of us is like a body part. Each one of us is like a piece in the puzzle. I love this passage because it just shows how important we are to each other and how important we are to God. We cannot say that one of us is more important than the other one because each piece is needed in the puzzle. So a little bit of what was going on with Paul in the church in Corinth. See, Paul stayed in Corinth for 18 months working hard in a variety of problems. And so right here when he's writing this letter, it said that some of the problems they had was there 4 different groups vying for leadership in there. And so each group said that we are better than the other. And so they just built a church or a building to honour Aphrodite. And so 1,000 women worked in that place as prostitutes because they thought that was a way to get involved and to belong in there. And so there was these things of saying, these groups saying, look, I'm doing good things. And the other group saying, no, I'm doing good things. We should be leadership here. And saying, no, that group's not important here. I'm doing this. So Paul is writing to an audience like that. Paul is saying, hey, you guys are all just as important as each other. See, Paul is giving them a wake-up call. He's saying, yes, you are important, and you are very important to God, but you are no important to the next person or the person next to you. See, last week, as I said, we talked about how important you are individually to the family of God and to God. And you are. We don't want to belittle that any time. And as Kate says, sometimes we can feel inadequate about ourselves, and we can say we don't want to show our emotions. We don't want to show these different parts of what God has made us. But God is saying, hey, every single bit of you is great. I love every bit of you. And you belong in the family of God. And we should never forget that, because sometimes society will say we're not adequate enough. We're not as good as the next person. We're not as good as that person. But here God is saying, no, yes, you are. And every part of the puzzle is part of a bigger picture. And it's very unique. And so I want to give you a puzzle piece as we talk about this sort of thing here. I've got a little book here, and so I want to take one and pass it on. It's an Avengers puzzle. I don't know what part you're going to pick out, but take one piece and take one piece and pass it on. And on the back of it, we do say belong on there because we want to have this little image across there. And so, as I said, every bit of the puzzle is unique. Your piece is different to every other piece. No two are exactly the same. See, if there was two pieces exactly the same, you wouldn't need one of those pieces. You could just disregard that piece. But it's not. Each piece is different. And so it fits in to make this bigger picture of what God is. See, since there is no other piece like what you've got, and your piece, it means you are essential to that puzzle. It means you are essential to the family of God. And you are unique to the family of God. And no one else can bring what you bring in that sense. See, each piece is just as important as the next piece. Regardless if it's a corner one, or it's one with smooth edges, or lots of weird things in the middle of it, it's still essential to it. But I want you to take that further and think about how others belong. Now, other piece. The person next to you has a puzzle piece as well. The people that aren't here, they theoretically have puzzle pieces in the family of God and in this church. And without them, the puzzle is incomplete. It's not like yes, it has, look, you can make 3/4 of it, you can make half a picture and say, yes, I know it's going to be a picture of the Avengers, but Spider-Man's missing his hat. I don't know. That's how much I know about this. But yes, you can say, but he's missing this part of it. See, so often in our culture, we have to focus on ourselves. We focus on ourselves being a unique and wonderful piece of the jigsaw puzzle. But at the same time, we are just one piece in it. See, Paul's analogy is, we can't just look after the finger and neglect the rest of the body. We can't just look after the nose and neglect the rest of the body. We all have to be working together. We all have an important part to play in this. When you get a puzzle and you put it out, how does two pieces connect? How do you make the puzzle? It doesn't just put it out there and robots assemble it together and all these little things and it happens before you. We have to put the puzzle piece in there. We have to make other people feel they belong in here. It can't happen by itself. We have a role to make sure the other puzzle piece fits into the puzzle. And so we have an important role to play in the family of God and in making other people feel we belong. And so this isn't a role that we should be thinking about just on the side or haphazardly. We need some forward thinking about this. And so I want to have a look around. Because as I said, as we share with Kate, there are times when she's felt like she hasn't belonged. And I'm sure there are times when you felt you haven't belonged. So if you felt that you haven't belonged, the person next to you felt like they haven't belonged. And the person that isn't here felt like they haven't belonged. And so what can we do towards that? How can we help that? Why are they missing? Why are they not feeling like they belong? Have we made sure that we made them feel as welcome as we could? And it was good that one of the things that Kate said was, because one of the things that I put in here was that people so often say, yeah, I missed you, but we had a great time. And so Kate was saying, one of the easiest things that we can do is say, yeah, we missed you, and it wasn't the same because you weren't there. And so it's an easy thing to do. We don't say this so often. Again, we say, why didn't you come? Oh, I had something else. That's okay. Next week you can come. But sometimes we don't say, hey, we missed you. You don't have to give us an excuse why you didn't come. No, you probably have other things on. That's fine. But we just want you to know that you missed. We lacked a bit of the puzzle because you weren't here. So we need to make people feel how valued they are. So often we focus on our own puzzle piece or our own cluster of puzzle pieces. You get a corner bit done and you get 6 or 7 pieces, but you neglect the other bit because it's a bit harder. Okay, you get the faces done and you forget the water. Yeah, other stuff. But we need to be focusing on every single bit of the puzzle. I know I'm just as guilty if some people step away or don't feel belong, because maybe I could have done a little bit more. And so we all need to be thinking like that. And as I said, it's not to make us feel guilty, and it's not to feel make the other person feel guilty. It's just making people feel belong. They belong and are welcomed. See, again, like a secondary thought is what happens when we're away as well. How does that make the community back here? Now, again, I don't say that to make you feel guilty, but sometimes we just need to think about that sort of stuff as well. Think, okay, because we all know if we've been invited to go along somewhere and then that person isn't there, we feel a bit flat. We can sometimes do that as well. So as I said, it's not to make us feel guilty that we shouldn't be not going anywhere, but it's just to make us think about what is our role in making other people feel welcome and belong. See, back to my story that I opened up last week in terms of me giving up soccer and spending more time in the church. Now, during my last time in the soccer club, as I said, there was no real camaraderie. There was no real sense of welcoming. I would go to training, then go home, no hanging out, no checking up on me. Quite often, I would be left alone because my parents would, I'd go catch a train into Sunshine. Don't do it, it's a scary place. But I'd catch a train into Sunshine and then my parents would pick me up afterwards. And so quite often, I would just be left waiting for my parents outside. And so no one was really there to say, Chris, come inside and play a game with us or play some pool or something else. It was just everyone was after themselves. And you can easily say, yes, I should have been the one who started that. I should have just plonked my bags inside the club rooms and started playing pool or something like that. But it's hard for us to do that sometimes. So you take that back to my life in church, which was going on at the same time. The community I had there was a lot better. And so it was a culture that mobile phones was just starting off. And so you get text, but some phones didn't have that capabilities, and some did. That's really back in the ancient days. It's cool here. But we had a culture back then, from about 16 to 19, of writing letters to each other. Literally sitting down and writing letters to each other. And so the weird thing was that Linda and I were cleaning out some box that we had, and we came across this old shoebox, and I, for some reason, kept some of these letters because that was what it meant to me back then. It meant to, sometimes I would get it on a Sunday and say, hey, look, why weren't you there on Wednesday or Thursday? We missed you. Or sometimes I would even get it in my letterbox. And I'm not saying you go out and need write letters. That was just a culture it was back then. Stamps are $1. Oh no, it's an expensive thing, letter writing. But that was just a culture back then. And that's why I felt more part of the community then, because I felt that I belonged in there. And so, as I said, I had this continuing thought of this soccer career that I wanted so badly when I was growing up, but I didn't feel like I belonged in there. I didn't feel like the community I had there versus this place where I did feel like I belonged because people were checking up, people were following up, people were saying we missed you in this sort of stuff. People were being open with each other. And I read over those letters the other day with Linda and I thought, well, geez, we were very immature and very silly back then, but that was it. And so we need to think about how welcoming we are to other people. How welcoming and how often do we think, oh, how do these people belong? How does the person feel next to me? Kate illustrated so perfectly the fact that, we never realise how the other person's feeling. Kate's been coming along for 20 years and some of us have been for that long time, might not have known of those periods where she felt like she didn't belong. And as Kate said, it's part of our culture that we don't share those inadequacies. We don't do that. And unfortunately, I don't think that culture is going to go anywhere. We're still going to be those people that don't like to show our feelings. So it means our work to make people belong is harder. But it is worthwhile to do that because God has painted this picture And it's a beautiful picture of what the church is. And it's a beautiful picture of this community here. And I can just see God looking at the puzzle pieces of us and saying, hey, this fits perfectly and this fits perfectly. But we need to make other people feel they belong. We need to make other people feel like they're part of the puzzle as well. Let us just close in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you that you have created us uniquely. Thank you that you have loved us, that you have made us, and you have sacrificed for us. That there is no one else like us. And that we fit in your family. We've got a place in your family. But Lord, we also want to think about others. Maybe there is one person or a couple of people that you bring to our name that are thoughts. Lord, we want to think about how we can make other people feel just as you make us feel, like a valued piece of the puzzle and the family of God. Lord, sometimes we fall short of that. But Lord, let us think about different ways we can do that. Different ways we can make people feel welcome. And they not just welcome for that one time, but they continue to feel welcome and continue to feel like they belong. We all have a role to play. Lord, we just give this up to you. Just pray these things in your name. Amen.